Hey, it's Joel Mark Witt for Personality Hacker. In this video, I want to show you a live profiling session from the main stage at our profiler training event in Washington, D.C. This is with Antonia and her subject, her profiling subject, Dimitri. Now, you might think this is cheating a little bit because Dimitri's actually Antonia and my nephew, but he's not really been in our lives for many years since he was a little kid, and he just got reacquainted with us very recently. So we actually didn't have a confirmation on his personality type. We had our suspicions, obviously, but we didn't know for sure. So in this session, this is the first time Antonia's ever actually formally profiled Dimitri, and she does it in front of our entire live studio audience. As you watch this video, I want you to imagine yourself in the audience as a student, because profiler training, I mean, we can't even really capture here on video. You have to experience it. It's an experience that is very difficult to replicate without being there in person. So I want you, as close as you can, to imagine yourself in this experience, watching this profiling session, and imagining yourself following along as Antonia types Dimitri. What profile do you come up with as a student? So watch carefully.
Hi, how's it going? Hey. Once again, my name is Dimitri. So.
Oh my gosh, Dimitri, you're profiling yourself for me.
I know, sorry.
All right, that's it. What does everybody think his type is?
What is it?
All right. So just as a little recommendation, just as a recommendation, what we're going to do here is once the profiling session is done, we're going to deconstruct it. As I go through profiling him, I'll be doing, probably every once in a while, I'll be like, hey, did you see what I just did there? Or I might do a little call out. But really, this is your opportunity during a profiling session to write down things and be like, why did she ask that question? What was she looking for? So make sure you take notes. Anytime I ask a question, you're like, is she looking for this function or this function? Write it down, and at the end, you'll have an opportunity to ask me, when you asked that thing, what exactly were you looking for? What were you going for there? And then also some of the things that were tells that were obvious to you, and some of the things that threw you off, if anything throws you off. This might actually be quite an easy session. At the last event, we profiled two people who were actually quite difficult to profile. They were students who many people had attempted to profile, and everybody was coming up with question marks. And so they were tough nuts to crack, and so everybody was like, that one was difficult. So we thought we'd start out with something that was a little more easy, more simple, and more basic. Not that Dimitri as a human being is basic.
Very easy.
You're basic.
You're basic.
You're basic. But that's something that was a little less like, what is this person? So, and it might seem like I'm cheating because he's my nephew, but the reason why I chose Dimitri is because I realized I've never profiled him before. I just made an assumption about what his type was just through familiarity. So we've never done this before. We're doing it for the first time in front of you. Yep. And so I could be wrong, which I always enjoy when I think I know somebody's type through passive profiling, then I end up being totally wrong. I don't think I am, but I might be, and I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to see if my passive profiling is right. I, of course, obviously have known Dimitri his entire life, but that said, there was a big chunk of our life where we hadn't been around each other at all. His mother, my sister, died when he was 8, and he was moved across the country because his father remarried, and I didn't really see him until probably a couple years ago when we reunited. And it was like, so there's a lot of information I'm missing too. So it's not that much of a cheat, if that makes sense. It's like kind of like a perfect sort of in between. So anyway, so this is Dimitri. Dimitri, you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I was born in Texas. I was raised in Oregon, obviously. That's where we're from. My mom died when I was 8. And then the following year after that, my best friend died of bone cancer when I was 9. So it was like a double whammy for me. Am I going through history?
No, it's okay. It's okay. You're good.
And then my dad remarried, as Tony said. I was raised right. I was the Cinderella of my household. Cleaned. I was actually a good kid. But my goal and focus in life always was to make people happy. And I really wanted to make sure that everything was taken care of in a proper manner. And we then moved from Massachusetts down to Florida, where I did my high school career. And I graduated with my pharmacy tech degree, which I couldn't find a job in. It was very difficult for me to find one in Florida for some reason. And I ended up actually moving back to Texas, where I was born, and actually did a couple jobs there. I was in construction, and I was also a CNA at a psych hospital. And that was fascinating to me because, once again, I was able to help individuals, both acute psychotics and children. Teens were actually my favorite because our kids these days, I think we put the pressure and we judge them too harsh, and we have no idea what they're going through. So it's definitely a hard time for them. So I actually enjoyed it. I took a lot from it, and yeah, there's some more background to it.
So thank you, by the way, for being willing to provide all of that. And what we're going to do right now is I'm going to go through a series of questions that actually probably won't need to dive too much into your history.
Sure.
I mean, if that feels relevant, please, feel free to share whatever you would like to share. Okay. But really, I'm looking for the parts of your mind that you don't yet have language for. And so if I start to go off on weird rabbit trails or ask you questions where you're like, why is she asking that question? I'm looking for basically how your mind is sort of observing the world, observing life, and how it's making decisions. So anything that's too personal, please feel free to not share it. Sure. And if I ask you something that's called a forced choice question, which is it this or is it this? Yeah. Feel free to say it's both, it's neither, it's a third option, just whatever is authentic. And if I ask you a question that you believe a better answer is how other people perceive you, because you know how sometimes it's like, well, I would say this about myself, but my friends would say this. Sure. Just make sure you let me know that you're saying it from the perspective of other people. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, the only right answer is whatever you say.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Feel good? Feel ready?
I'm fine.
You're like, I'm born ready. All right. So the first question I'm going to ask you is the same question I ask everybody, and that is, what is it that you love to do? And when I say, what do you love to do? I mean, what do you love to do so much? Yeah. The only reason you stop is because you're exhausted. Otherwise, you go on indefinitely.
Oh. I love sports. Doesn't look like that, but I grew up, when I was going through my high school career, I actually loved playing football. That was something that I very much enjoyed, football and soccer, actually. I'm very athletic, but yeah, sports was definitely something. I just like to be outside. I like to run and have a good time. I was very team-oriented.
What's something else you love?
Definitely love being around people, but then again, I just said team-oriented. I like playing video games too. That's something I enjoy. It's definitely a break from the world. Some people have their own coping methods, whether it's meditation, music. For me, it's video games. I can definitely play those. I can't play those all night and everything else, but it's a nice break away. It's something like, especially a good story game, it gets me away from the world completely.
What else do you love?
To do? I love the fact that now I can actually explore myself and date. Dating is something that I was not able to do because of my upbringing and background. So it's definitely something that I'm very passionate about, because I want to see how I am and how I interact with others.
What else do you love?
Narrowing it down. Man, I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, that's fine. That's really fine. That's great. So you mentioned that your first one was sports.
Yeah.
All right. And is it more playing them or watching them?
Both.
Okay.
Both. I find the enjoyment in both the playing and watching. Yeah, huge Dallas Cowboy fan. So, not a great place to be here in Washington D.C. But I loved going to the games, but I loved just being able to throw the football around. Something that I very much enjoyed. Because when I did that, there was always good conversation. I don't think there was ever no conversation when I was throwing the football. It was continuous. It was a good relaxation period in a way, unless I was actually playing a game.
So one of the things that you like about throwing the football around is the conversation that happens.
Yeah.
What kind of conversation do you have when you're throwing the football around?
Life. It could be debates on different topics. It could also just be basic guy talk. You know, conversations that we had, maybe different shows we watched, what the interactions were in school, you know.
I wouldn't have thought that throwing the football around would be conversational. That's a really interesting insight.
Well, for some reason, when it came to sports, because when I was going through my high school career, a lot of my friends, especially my best friends, were in sports. So we were either playing football, soccer, or basketball. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a big basketball player, but the reason why I loved basketball so much was because they did. So it was something that they enjoyed, but we always had good flow of conversation. Just always great conversation. And it always passes the time. It's like how some people like to go to Starbucks and enjoy a cup of coffee while they talk. Mm. Same for me, just with sports.
Okay. One thing I want to point out, something he's doing, is he's not talking to me. He's talking to you guys. Is that interesting? All right. So there's some low-hanging fruit that's happening right now. All right. Sorry, I'm going a little meta.
Well, I'm used to stage presence too,
yeah.
So.
That's interesting. How do you feel about being on stage?
Comfortable. Mm-hmm. Once again, my upbringing. Mm-hmm. Should I shed the background on that?
Doesn't need to.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so with sports, it's not just playing, it's also watching. You're a Cowboys fan, and when you're casually playing, you like the conversation portion, and you also mentioned you're very team-oriented. So what is a more satisfying element to you of sports? Is it like the physicality and being out there and maybe pushing yourself and kind of like seeing how far you can push yourself, or is it truly the team orientation where you're like connecting with other people and orchestrating and strategizing?
I think during scrimmages and like off the field practices, it was very team oriented. We tried to plan, we tried to get things done, but when I got on the field and we actually played like games and stuff, there was a lot of competition. And I'm a very, very competitive person. Mm-hmm. I don't shut down. And when I don't like to lose. I don't. It's something that I can't stand it. And so I'm a good loser, if that makes sense, because I can lose a couple games and everything, but if I'm losing straight up all the way, I can't stand it, and it's a fire that just drives me. And at that point, I just go all out.
So you're a good loser in the sense that outwardly you're a good loser?
Yeah.
Because you're kind of
Internally.
talking. Yeah.
Internally, yeah. Outwardly, I'm a good loser, but internally, I can't stand it, and it's just fire for me to keep going.
What happens when you're losing internally?
Ooh, what could I have done to push forward? What could I have done better?
So you review and sort of deconstruct and
Oh,
try to
yeah.
figure out.
Definitely. Yeah,
Like-
in my mind, I go play by play, or even when it comes to video games, if I die, I just I set the controller down and I immediately sit there and say, what could I have done that match? What could I have done better?
So you don't just leave and shake it off.
No,
Okay.
no, I continue to go because I want to win.
For the next time.
Yeah.
Okay. So you said something really interesting when I asked you the second time, what do you love?
Yeah.
You said, being around people, I love playing video games,
Yeah.
which I don't think of for me as being the same thing.
Right.
Like when I'm playing video games, I'm not usually around people. So
Right.
what does that mean?
Well, for me, I thought I separated those two.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
If I didn't, I'm sorry. But when I play video games, I play a lot of online. So when I play online video games, everything, I have a group of friends, and some people may not see this, who are gamers, who are not. Some people may think video games are horrible, but I've actually made a lot of lasting friendships and bonds over video games, over the internet, which might be frowned upon amongst a lot of people, but for me, it's actually been lasting. These people have actually helped me through some of my hardest times. In fact, I just met one of my video game buddies not even a month ago in South Carolina. You know, it was fantastic. At first, it was a little awkward. You know, how everybody was how yesterday, where everybody was staring each other in the eyes and everything. We've never done that. We've never had that interaction. So it was like, all right, well, how's it going? Wait, we talk every night almost. So, but it was really cool to actually see him up front and get to know him on a personal note.
What's the more rewarding part of video games? Is it the relationships that you're building around them? Or is it the competitive piece? Is it a combination?
Ooh, I think it's both. I'd have to say it's both. Because it's another way I can cut up with my friends, and also it's another form of teamwork. Because I play a competitive online video game called Rainbow Six Siege, which puts teams of 5 together, and you literally have to work together to infiltrate a building. And y'all just can't just go in and do whatever you want. It's team oriented. You have to work together. So it's the bond of communication between all of us that is so interesting to me.
If gaming didn't include the teamwork component, do you think you would enjoy it as much?
Wow. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. I don't think I could, actually. I would enjoy it to an aspect of still making friends, because that's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy having a good time, and that's what we do. But I don't think I've ever thought about if the competitive side was taken out. If
you were not able to If you were not able to connect with a group of people playing the teamwork, the competitive element with the teamwork, what do you think your threshold for playing video games would be? Like maybe even in hours?
Well, my threshold now is like maybe not even 2 or 3, but it'd probably be lower than that if it wasn't any competitive, because it'd probably be like an hour. Because like I said before, competitive gameplay drives me more. So if we lose, I keep going.
And with the teamwork component in competition, what's your threshold for playing video games?
How so?
Like in hours.
Like hours? I can go on for a while.
What's a while?
Until we win multiple.
And how long does that take?
Oh man, that just all depends. That all depends when I'm playing. I mean, I could
2 hours,
be way in the
3?
night, 4.
4.
5,
Okay, 4
yeah.
plus. Okay.
Yeah, 4 plus.
All right.
But I don't like to do that. So.
Why don't you like to do that?
Because I have other things that usually are on my mind and I have to get done.
So even when you're like decompressing at night,
Yeah.
or during the day playing games with your friends, you don't like to go 4+ hours because you have other things on your mind.
Yeah, I'm usually either planning of what I have to do the next day, or I am trying to see how the day went the previous day. Try to see whatever I can change.
So when you're playing games and you're playing for too long, one of the things that interrupts that is a review of the previous day.
Sometimes,
Okay.
but usually it's actually planning for the next.
Okay.
It's usually planning ahead,
Yeah.
or things that I have on my mind that I have to take care of.
Okay.
Because I'm so goal-oriented and I have such a list of things that I have to get done, and I guess I get kind of stressed and put down if I don't get these things knocked out.
How organized are you as a general rule?
I am actually extremely organized, except when it comes from my room.
Why is that, do you think?
I view my room as the only place that's for me. My house is all tidy, everything's clean, so when guests come over, they see that. But room's off limits. You know, that's my room, that's my space. So it's like that's where I can be me, do me, and be free in a way.
Yeah. Some stuff coming up for you? Some low-hanging fruit? Tell me a little bit about dating. Like you said, dating is a place where you get to, what was the specific phrase you used? You get to see how you interact with yourself and others through dating, and that's really interesting to you.
It is interesting to me because obviously there's a lot of personality types, and you don't exactly know how you're going to interact and how they're going to interact. So it's very different when it comes to that point. So it's like I never got to go through the dating phase in high school at all. I was the freshman big backpack kid and everything else, walking through the halls, and I was a little nerd. But I never got that chance to date. But then when I got outside of high school, I got to experience what it was like. You know, what sex was like, what it was to have a bond with someone, to have that physical, emotional relationship with someone. Which, once again, emotional relationships and physical relationships are something that I enjoy. I like to get to know that person in and out.
A theme through everything you're saying is relationships. Pretty much almost everything, it's almost like an excuse for a relationship. Would you say that relationships are actually the thing that you can do forever, right?
Yeah.
Until you get exhausted?
Yeah.
Okay. What's more obvious to you? Your emotional reaction or your feelings about a situation, or other people's emotional reaction to a situation?
Oh, definitely other people's. Definitely other people's. No question.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you in touch with your own emotional reactions to things?
Not really, because I want to see a sense of, I mean, I see it, but I'd like to see what other people's reactions are.
So you do see your own, but it's
Yeah.
not as interesting to you.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not as interesting.
Why are other people's reactions to things more interesting to you, do you think?
Because I just want to see what their thoughts are. That's kind of why I like debates. You know, when a controversial conversation comes up, I want to see what other people think about the topic.
So, so when you're in touch with other people's emotions, it's actually their thoughts you're seeking.
Yeah.
Right. Are you also
It's also their feelings. I want to
Okay.
know how they feel as well.
okay? Okay. Do you think there's like a strong correlation between people's feelings and their thoughts?
I don't know.
When you're super stressed out, and you just like hit a wall,
Yeah.
how do you tend to respond in those situations?
Whew. That's changed over the past couple of years because I went through a situation where that wasn't an issue. Because usually I would surround myself around people immediately. That's where I got a lot of my energy from. I'd hang out with friends, I'd go do something with them. But now I've gone kind of inside myself and figured out a way of coping with it by myself. So when it comes to extreme stress, I mean, you don't see me. Sometimes I just completely disappear. So I like to go for like long drives and just listen to music. And I have some specific artists that have helped me throughout my years. And it's definitely helped. That definitely is a stress relief and a coping mechanism.
Are you ever self-critical?
Yes.
What does that look like?
Man, I tend to put myself down a lot. I did throughout my high school career. Because once again, I feed off of what other people's energy is. So, back to the dating part, I never got a chance. You know, I was super nice. I was always a nice guy, funny guy, and everything. But I never got that chance, so I was always very self-critical about myself. You know, I was not good enough, and I was always put in the "you're such like a brother to me" and everything else column. And I was like, oh, fantastic! So I'm so happy. And so I was always thought it was my looks, or maybe it was just something that I was doing wrong. But yeah, so I was very self-critical at the time. But as I've matured, I've seen who I am as a person.
You said you think about the future a lot. How far into the future are you usually thinking?
Ooh. I tend to think about goals that I have to get done by a specific certain amount of time. That's usually how far I go. I plan it out. So if you want an accurate measurement of time, probably a half a year. I don't go any further than that because I have no idea what's going to happen after that.
And how far back when you're reviewing things to just sort of understand and learn from them, how far back do your reviews go?
Probably when it gets to the hardest times. So 8 years old when my mom passed away. I think that's when it started. Because that's when a few years later I actually went into therapy. And I think it was good a couple years back, about 4 years back, that I went to a psych therapist. Because I think at some point, for people who have traumatic incidences and situations that have happened even in their past that they haven't been able to get through, it still affects you in the future. And so it wasn't just my mom passing away or my best friend the next year, but it was how life was during the teens, you know, because during your teen years is when you're starting to grow in some ways and you're trying to figure out who you are.
You said that you worked with troubled kids and teenagers. And I suspect that you find psychology pretty interesting.
I do.
Or is that okay? You do. And what's your sort of threshold for talking about things like psychology and?
That's very high.
Yeah.
It's extremely high. I think I pointed out to you guys a couple years ago that it was like, so you guys do some form of psychology, and you were like, something like that. And I was like, no, it's psychology. It's like, you get into personalities.
What about other sort of abstractions and conversations about things that are sort of very speculative?
In what way? Sorry.
No. Yeah. Just things like, like when people speculate on reality or how things could be, or that aren't specifically about people in psychology, maybe other things that, like what if questions, lots of what ifs about how reality could be working, or what if we were on the Matrix, or.
It's definitely a conversation that I enjoy because it's something that you can branch out and see who you are. It's like research about yourself. What if things, like what if this could happen? Or what if that happened? I actually tend to think of what if that happened? What if my mom stayed alive? Where would I be? What if my relationship worked out a couple years ago? Where would I be at this time?
What if they're not personal conversations? What if they're just what ifs about reality?
Do
you find them interesting, but...
I find them interesting.
Or is that like the kind of conversation you love?
It's not really the kind of... the conversation I love is about them, about people.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I can have conversations about reality and stuff, but
of course,
if my focus is on, once again, what they think.
Yeah.
And then I try to...
What's something that's super obvious to you that other people miss that you can't even, why, how do people miss this? It's so obvious.
For me, depression. It's obvious to me. A lot of people don't see it and everything. They think that when I take these drives and I just I'm kind of off the radar, they don't think that I'm going through something because I'm so engaging with them. You know, I love to have conversation. I love to have a good time, laugh, and make other people laugh. But it's kind of a mask for me. All that is a mask because you know, I'm very in touch with my emotions, extremely in touch with my emotions. So if I gotta cry it out, I'll cry it out, you know. But you know, I snap back into reality and just keep going because I'm just a fighter. So that's how I get through things.
You don't have any fear of expressing your emotions?
I have no fear.
What about other people when they're expressing emotions? Does that make you uncomfortable?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm very empathetic towards it. That's why I enjoyed working on the adolescent unit.
What makes you uncomfortable?
Nothing. Actually, any topic is actually very comfortable for me.
All right. I think I feel pretty good about your type. I don't think it's going to be a big surprise. But before I go into it, what was the first low-hanging fruit that you guys saw?
The wave.
The wave. All right. Yes, Dom.
His bedroom being kept tidy like the rest of his house.
His bedroom not being kept tidy like the rest of his house? And what did that tell you?
Well, that he doesn't want people to see his mess that he prefers. But at the same time, he said he has friends that come over, so he doesn't want them to see that. But at the same time, he prefers to like have everything, you know, out of place and etc.
Yeah, so his room is a sanctuary, so it's okay to have that be messy, but nothing else that's presentation, basically. What else did you guys notice?
Regarding that, a real key thing he says is it's where I can really be me. So that was
Yeah.
a key point for that.
Yeah, I can be me. Yeah. Yes.
The review play-by-play of sports and gaming, but like immediately set the controller down and spend time without moving, going back in time.
Right, reviewing, yeah, after an activity like gaming. Yep. Yeah. Did you have something? Yeah.
How approachable and friendly and people-oriented that he was.
Yes. Very, very people-oriented. Yes.
Balak, even before he started, introduced himself to us and started talking to us. That kind of like give us a hint, maybe E, maybe F.
So, before I do my big reveal, which I'll do for the camera, but what are you guys thinking? What type?
ESFJ.
ESFJ?
ENFP.
ENFP? ENFJ?
Yes, FJ.
ESFJ? What are you guys thinking? ENFJ? ENFJ?
ESFP.
ENFP? What's that?
ESFP.
ESFP. Yeah.
So when he's stressed,
Yeah.
he goes and drives, he's going to exploration.
All right. Well, going through all of this, I would say you're an ESFJ. Yeah. And so let me tell you a little bit about what that means, and you can tell me whether or not this resonates with you.
Right.
All right. So E stands for extrovert. The other possibility would be I for introvert. For extroverts, the outer world is the real world. So this is the world that's interesting. It's the world that you're engaged with. It's what you check in when you have any doubts or indecision.
Right.
Like the outside world is reality, and so you sort of calibrate everything internally with what's going on out here.
Right.
And so you have extroverts have a higher tolerance for outer world energy, right? People, circumstances, situations. Introverts, the inner world is the real world for them. So they have a lower tolerance for things in the outside world because everything they're feeling internally has to be sort of reconciled with what the world is telling them, and that over time can be a little taxing. So they end up retreating more to get energy back. And I think for you, my suspicion is the outer world's the real world.
Yeah.
You have a much higher tolerance for the energy out here. This is where you gain your energy, except for in moments of stress. But
Right.
as a general rule, does that resonate with you?
Yes.
Okay. So the second letter is S for sensor. The other option would be N for intuitive. For sensors, they're more grounded. Sensors are more in touch with what is happening in front of them. They're more sort of observant of what's going on. They're more sort of in touch with things like timelines and responsibilities and sort of holding on the fort. Intuitives are more sort of, they're more interested in what if and speculation and things that are abstract. And for sensors, one of the ways I try to illustrate it is for sensors, they're very much paying attention to what's in front of the curtain, all the details of what's happening in front of the curtain, whereas intuitives want to know what's going on behind the curtain, so they don't pay as much attention to the things in front of them. They're more trying to figure out what they can't see. And I think for you, you have more of a grounded energy. For you, it's more about like what is reality telling me, and checking in with that. Does that resonate with you as well? Okay. And if it doesn't, please feel free to say so, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The third letter is F. That stands for feeler. The other option would be T for thinker. For feelers, people are the thing, right? Their values and the things that they make their decisions around how people are feeling, how they're feeling. People are one of the most important elements to them, and people's emotions and their experience. The other option would be thinker. For thinkers, they're making decisions where people are one component, but it's not the whole picture. They're also making decisions around other things like resources and concepts and that sort of thing. Yeah. And I think you definitely tend to favor people, how you're feeling and how other people are feeling. Yeah, okay. And then the final letter is J. That stands for judger. The other option would be P for perceiver. For judgers prefer external organization so they can have inner peace. Whereas perceivers like to organize their thoughts and feelings so they can be more spontaneous in the outside world, and so that they can be more reactionary and more responsive. And I think you have a tendency to rest when you know the outer world is handled. When you're on a timeline, when you're taking care of things, when you have a schedule, when things are organized, that helps you sort of calm down and not have to be anxious. Does that resonate as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. So as an ESFJ, you have a certain wiring of your mind. There's a certain construction to your mind that is particular to people of your personality type. And so one of the ways to understand this is imagine your mind is a 4-passenger vehicle. In the front, you have a driver, and sitting next to the driver, you have a co-pilot. Behind the co-pilot is a 10-year-old, and behind the driver is a 3-year-old. And these make up 4 elements of your personality, and you have a strong relationship with all 4 of these little parts inside of you. And as an ESFJ, that would mean that your driver is a mental process called extroverted feeling, and we've nicknamed it harmony. And it's all about relationships. It's all about checking with people's emotions. It's all about making sure that people's needs are getting met. You didn't specifically say that, but I have a feeling that getting people's needs met is pretty important to you.
I was gonna say, I think that was something that we didn't get to.
But that resonates with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
Do you have people's needs on your radar all the time?
All the time.
Yeah.
And I want people to make sure that they feel comfortable and they're at peace.
Yeah. Yeah. And so people who lead with harmony are very in touch with other people's emotions, but that doesn't mean that they're always super feelery. Mostly what they're trying to do is trying to kind of create an equilibrium of relationships. If somebody needs harshness to get back into that equilibrium, then you'll be harsh. If people need softness and gentleness to get back into that equilibrium, you'll be soft and gentle. You're responsive to the needs of the sort of social ecosystem, and you do what you need to do in order to make sure that everybody feels good. Does that resonate as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Awesome. This is how you make decisions, by the way. This is your value. Whenever you're making decisions, you're always checking in with what will be good for the team? What's good for everybody, not just myself? People who use harmony have a tendency to sort of sacrifice themselves in behalf of the group.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself doing that?
Yeah, my needs mean nothing to me.
Right, yeah.
Everyone else's needs, it's like Melissa yesterday. Melissa, I still feel bad about that. Still do. Yeah.
Whatever that was.
Lunch.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. When I messed up on our lunch, I was like, oh, I thought about that all day. So, yeah, it was something heavy on my mind. I felt so bad about it.
Right. So if somebody's need isn't getting met, it's like it weighs on you.
Yep,
absolutely. And so because you don't want to feel that burden, you're going to do what you can to make sure that people's needs are getting met.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the things I often tell people who have the harmony function, in order to be at your healthiest, you have to remember that you're part of everyone when you think everyone needs to get their needs met. All right, so don't throw yourself under a bus too much. All right, make sure that you're getting your needs met.
Right.
Put on your own oxygen mask first. Right, that's what they always say in airplanes. Sure. So you can serve the collective best if you're at peak health. So making sure you're getting your needs met is very important.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you complement that function with an introverted function. This is the introverted part of you.
Yeah.
Everybody has an extroverted part of themselves. Everybody has an introverted part.
Right.
You lead with your extroverted part, but you complement it with the function, that co-pilot in the front seat, with a function called introverted sensing, or what we've nicknamed memory. This is the part of you that reviews the day.
Right.
This is the part of you that reviews losing in a competitive context and going, okay, what could I have done different? You review things to see things that maybe you missed the first time through.
Yeah.
And that's where you do your best learning, right? As you're reviewing something from the past. I asked you, how far into the future do you think? And you're like, 6 months-ish.
Yeah.
How far in the past are you reviewing? 8 years old, all right? So we're talking a decade and a half versus a 6-month timeline. So you definitely are oriented to reviewing things and making sure you're learning the right lessons from what you've experienced.
Right.
Does that resonate?
That's completely accurate.
Yeah. And so this is the part of you, it's technically called a perceiving function, but really what it means is this is how you're taking in information. So in the moment, you might be capturing a lot, but really the time when you understand how reality truly works is when you have that alone time and you have the time to review and learn and understand all of your lessons in that review process.
Yeah.
All right. So make sure you're giving yourself plenty of alone time to go through that review. And it kind of sounds like you give yourself permission to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's very, very healthy. The more you can give yourself that alone time for review, the better you are to do what your driver wants to do, which is get everybody's needs met, right?
Right.
You're a better team member, right? You're better in your squad when you're playing Rainbow Six. If you, after you're done playing and losing, you review the lessons, you figure out what you could have done different, and then you can go back to playing next time in your team and become a better player.
Yeah.
Is-
I
yeah.
can't change it though.
Yeah, you can't change the past. Well, we'll get to that in just a moment. All right, so sitting behind the co-pilot is a 10-year-old process. So this is a little less sophisticated part of you,
Right.
but it's a very playful part of you.
Yeah.
And you know that phrase, kids say the darndest things? This can also be a part of you that has wisdom to share, but kind of almost incidental wisdom. And that is directly opposite from your introverted sensing. So it's an opposite process called extroverted intuition, or what we call exploration. So this is the intuitive part of you. This is your pattern recognition part. This is the part of you that's your gut and kind of understands things and maybe can't explain how you know what's going on. You might actually be very in tune with other people's emotions. You said depression is something that is obvious to you, but isn't always obvious to other people, and that seems weird. This is the part of you that picks up when somebody's not feeling good, and even if they're putting on a bright face.
Yeah.
Is that something that you are
Yeah.
tapped into?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can immediately sense somebody's emotions. I mean, you can be on the other side of the room and I can feel it.
Yeah. And so this is the part of you that sort of has that tentacle out for what's going on with other people, even if you're not 100% sure what's how you know what you know.
Yeah.
But a part of that is this process works the best if you give yourself plenty of review time,
Yeah.
because it's in those moments when you go back and review
Yeah.
where you kind of relive the experience and you go, I think that's what was going on for that person,
Yeah.
or I think that's what was happening. And so then you get more sort of sophistication around what's probably happened in the past, and so that you can apply that to current time
Yeah.
periods.
And that's actually the point, is that no matter how down I am, and if they're down, I'm still going to take all that energy in. Like I'm still going to try to make them feel better, even though I'm down. And then obviously the next day or next couple hours, I'm going to try to like get myself back down to a state that I'm okay at.
Yeah. So one of the challenges of this function, even though it gives you a lot of insight in some ways, one of the challenges is that it also encourages you to over diversify. meaning that you might spread yourself too thin. You might feel responsible for everybody's needs, right? And so you just kind of spread, like everything's catching your attention, right? Like that person, this thing, and that thing.
Yeah.
And so one of the highest leverage activities that you can do is get back into your introverted sensing, your memory, and see things in more sort of a streamlined way. A sense of what am I actually responsible for, right? Like not how can I get everybody's needs met, but what am I personally responsible for? And then honor your responsibilities, including yourself, right? Getting your needs met, and then just kind of going, maybe all that stuff that distracts me and sort of catches my eye, maybe that stuff isn't stuff I'm actually responsible for. So I can kind of bring my energy back in and serve the people that I love and serve the people that are important to me, right? That are part of my life, as opposed to spreading myself too thin to maybe people I just met or strangers or people with problems, right? They'll catch my attention, but they might not be the best use of my sort of my emotions.
Yeah, well, that's definitely hard for me because like yesterday I didn't want to give it away what my personality type was, but like now that you guys know, I'm gonna be like, hey, how's it going? You know, I'm gonna be super happy and like trying to talk to all of you guys and get to know you. So it's just who I am.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that, by the way.
Yeah.
But so does that make sense, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the final part of your personality mind wiring construction is the function that's sitting right behind the driver. So if your driver's extroverted feeling, your 3-year-old is introverted thinking, all right? And this is what we call accuracy. This is the part of you that is sort of helping you detox when you play video games. It's the part of you that wants to get into something that is as far away from humans as possible. Right. The only time that you can truly rest is when you don't have other people's needs on your radar. Right. So if you can get into a place where no human being exists and there are no needs, you can finally have a moment to yourself, right? But you don't have a huge threshold for it. Being there for about an hour is about right. Yeah, and then you want to get back into engaging with other people. So this is the part of you that's kind of sort of like an inner calculator, right? Like the inner part of you that just doesn't care about humans, right? It just wants to have like an information moment, just data, information, pixels on a screen, right? And this is also the part of you that helps you with reason and logic and analysis. And so this is a very important part of you. But the challenge is that introverted thinking or accuracy is it's a critical voice. Now, when it's high in a person's car, right? When it's a driver or a co-pilot, because the person is being critical all the time about everything, eventually it almost feels non-judgmental. It's just kind of clean slicing the world and sort of seeing things in terms of like, oh, that could be better, oh, that could change. But when it's a 3-year-old function and you only go there sometimes, unfortunately that critical voice can be turned in on itself, which means on you. So that part of you that's hard on yourself, the part of you that's telling yourself like, oh, I could have done better, oh, why didn't I, right? And sort of that inner mean person voice, that's coming from accuracy. And what it's actually trying to do is it's trying to tell you that you need a break, all right? So anytime you start to tear yourself down or say really self-critical things, a better thing to do is to go into a detoxing mode, a decompression, and to do something like play video games or get away from other human beings and what you're suspecting their opinion of you is. Just get as far away from people as possible, get in a totally digital place, and then in about an hour come out and see if you're refreshed and no longer being mean to yourself. Right. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So that is the construction of your personality type. Did you have any questions?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much for being willing to be our guinea pig. All right.
So were you right? What type guess did you have for Dimitri when Antonia was profiling him on the main stage? Did you guess the type that she came up with? I'd love to hear from you. You can leave a comment, question, share your story directly below in comments. Also, if you're interested in learning how to do profiling like what Antonia just did on the stage, I'd love to invite you to find out more about our profiler training class. It's our premier program, flagship program. We teach you not only to do the formal profiling session you just saw Antonia do, but also what we call conversational profiling. Basically going through your day at the coffee shop, on an airplane, talking to your coworkers, without them even knowing you're profiling them, you can be conversing with them and understanding more about their personality type. So we teach you how to do that in profiler training, as well as the formal stuff. Check out more information profilertraining.com. I'd love to see you apply for the next class. It'd be really cool to meet you in person and have you be a part of this experience with me and Antonia going forward. Joel Mark with Personality Hacker. I'll talk to you in the next video.